Are we going to mention the European Super League? We're about the only people who won't, probably.
The European Super League.
Oh,
And here's the European Super League, or whatever Eddie Hemmings said.
What happened to our European Super League?
And people are going to be upset, aren't they? Because the company's called Super League Brackets Europe and not European Super League. So, as if Rugby League came up with the name Super League in the first place anyway, which we didn't.
There's our USP gone overnight.
I know.
Which wasn't unique anyway.
Yeah, along with netball, women's football, darts leagues across the country, everything. Rugby World Cup. That was ours. Video referees, taking that. I even saw Brian Moore, famous Halifax solicitor, don't know what else he ever did, suggesting that Rugby Union could perhaps play the pro games in the summer. What a novel idea.
I've heard of that before.
only 20 years behind, but I don't know. Yeah, so European Super League, it's happening. It's happening. It's not happening. It'll get cancelled somehow. Who would give power to sports clubs? John Davidson. I mean, what a crazy idea that would be. Can you imagine the chaos that would happen if you let loose these egos of club owners, 12 of them, and handed the future of the sport in their hands?
I did read a whimsical piece by a certain follically challenged Ross Heppenstall today about that and how it was similar to Super League. The breakaway of 96, it's not really, to be honest. I don't think you can compare it that much at all because they want to essentially create their own Champions League and still play in the normal leagues. It's not really that different, but it just sort of shows professional sport at that level is just all about money and greed. And also, I think, is there any, Phil might be able to answer this, is there any foreign owners in Super League, in Rugby League in the UK? I don't think there is, while pretty much nearly every English football club is now owned by an American or a Russian or whoever.
I think there was a bloke called Argyle who owned a foreign team in Rugby League, but I don't think he's involved anymore.
But we like Australians, though, Phil, don't we? Well, some of us do. Some of us don't, but...
It's really interesting what Richard said, though. I mean, it's not even so much about this being a surprise. It's about governance models and the rich wanting and needing to become richer, and the poor being told either follow in our wake or go and do your own thing. Well, if you look at the history of the Northern Union and why it broke away from the establishment RFU in 1895, there are even some parallels there. So you let the genie out the bottle, you shouldn't be surprised that it goes to its illogical extension. That there are voracious beasts out there that are looking for global markets and sponsors in India that will pay the wages of overinflated wages that can't be contained, and that's what you get. Let's not talk about it anyway. But
who are the Australian equivalent of Spurs anyway? That's what I don't
know. Manly, definitely.
Oh,
so a team that hasn't won a comp since 1961, who think they're a big club, but they're not really a big club.
Manly.
No, we won a comp in 2011, Phil. So,
yeah, but Manly promise much, deliver little.
Well, we're the only team to have won a grand final in every decade and never won the wooden spoon. But I would probably say I would have almost said Cronulla, but I don't think they've ever pretended to be a big club. Probably a West Tigers in some way.
Well, I mean that neatly links us.
Bulldogs. Or the
Bulldogs.
They're particularly rubbish. But they used to be good in the 80s and a little bit in the 90s and the 2000s. Yeah.
And the other thing to say about all of this is some of the words being used by those who want to break away and those who want to retain what there is, bearing in mind that what there is isn't particularly equitable in the first place. There is so much have and have not in football already that to be claiming that it's going to be any different is a little bit of a misnomer. But words like sustainable footing, headline fixtures,
Stakeholders was my favourite.
change because of the coronavirus, all the kind of things we should have been looking at for our game and haven't.
I think the probably the only interesting correlation is fan power and what power fans have. And obviously, when Maurice Lindsay wanted to merge certain teams, Calder and what was it, Widnes and Warrington, fans were against that, and they demonstrated, didn't they? And they effectively stopped it happening. And the same happened in Australia. South Sydney got kicked out of competition, and 100,000 people marched through the main streets of Sydney. Not all of them South fans, some of them North fans, Balmain fans, etc. And they got the club reinstated. And there was a very vocal fan element to the ARL v Super League war, which effectively kept some of the ARL clubs going to nights, for example. So yeah, fans do have a say, like in the European Super League. If people don't watch it, don't pay their money, then it'll be a failure. It won't happen. So I think fans, as always, they can vote with their feet, with their consumption habits, with their wallets.
But again, it raises a really interesting question about, are there enough traditional fans, or the horrible phrase that the ESL are using, legacy fans, compared to the global fans they can attract? And that's also at the heart of the debate, that we have got an aging fan base. Will it sustain the sport going into the next 10, 15, 20 years?
I agree, Phil, and there definitely needs to be a push for younger fans and younger people to get involved in rugby league. When I think I went to Anfield about 4 or 5 years ago, they were playing Arsenal, and it was probably at least 12 years since I'd been to a Liverpool FC game at Anfield. And what struck me was the amount of Germans, Japanese, etc. people, fans who were at Anfield, with obviously no connection to the city, or they were fans of the club, which obviously in rugby league we don't have that problem, which would be a nice problem to have, but we don't have millions of people in Southeast Asia or in Indonesia watching our games, at 9 o'clock at night or 3 in the morning. So that is the massive difference, isn't it? Football, the Premier League especially, lives off global TV rights and makes money from Asia and Africa and the Middle East and America, and that's what's driving these things, I think.
I think there's two issues raised there. One is the idea of this would not be going ahead, however abhorrent it might be, if there wasn't finances and television backing it. Now, it may not be the traditional television here. It might be someone in America. It might be someone in the Far East. But the amount of money that is on offer is what is driving this. We are looking at a television deal which apparently should again have been announced last Friday and wasn't, that is going to be less rather than more. So that again is why there is no comparison with what's happening. But I think the other thing is there's a lot of talk of corporate finance in sport these days, be it the All Blacks, be it the Formula One, whatever it might be. You invite in corporate finance, and in some ways it's impossible to stop it when you've opened that door in the first place, and they will tell you what they want. You will not be telling them what you are prepared to be, and this again is a slippery slope of saying, yes, we need the money from outside to keep us going. What price are we going to have to pay to get that money? And that's what football are finding, rugby union will be finding, cricket is certainly finding. The fan objections to the 100 have not stopped it going ahead. It's a televised, financed version of cricket that we are going to get whether we like it or not, and people will go and support it.
The flip side of that is, though, in the modern world, in a more competitive sports market, can you survive without private investment, private ownership? Because the All Blacks are one of the most successful brands / teams of any sport anywhere in the world, but that's a tiny market. They are a tiny market, a tiny country, and they realise that they're going to stay where they are. They need extra money, and obviously in rugby league, if we're not growing, we're either stagnating or we're going backwards. And I think a lot of people would say we are going backwards. So at least in this part of the world. So if we don't accept private ownership or private investment, how do we move forward? How do we improve? But
the other side of that coin is there will be a price to pay for the money that comes in. You will lose some of and alienate some of what you might call traditional, but that door was opened in 1895, and certainly as far as football, the Premiership is built on exactly the same model of breakaways for television money, and the big clubs looking for more say, and the other ones being given an ultimatum: you either follow us or you never play us again, which they have to do. And we had the same in here and in Australia with the formation of Super League. This is just advanced capitalism in sport.
Where's Rupert Murdoch? He must be around somewhere. He's always around. He's always around. It's the bizarre thing about sport, and we will talk about rugby league properly in a second, that the country that is most scared of socialism stroke capitalism is is North America, is the United States of America, and theirs are the sports that have the most salary cap systems, etc. But there you go. We'll see what happens, and
it raises the question of franchising and promotion and relegation as well, which we're not here to discuss football, but all of the issues that football is facing, and bearing in mind the global profile that football has, are all things that we should be discussing, because whether we like it or not, it may at some point, not too far down the line, affect this sport if it is to gain the kind of prominence that it will need to survive in a full-time environment.
Well, I think Rich makes a good point. I think if there was salary caps in the Premier League or in world football, then we wouldn't have this scenario, because we wouldn't have ridiculous spending that's out. And I think, the Americans with their drafts and their salary caps, I think there's an argument: can a salary cap league work if you don't have a draft? And some would say it doesn't. And yeah, it's certainly a system. I think that is more equitable, but doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get. You're still going to have big clubs and small clubs. I think that's just life. Unless Wakefield get the best 3 picks every year, so they get Jake Truman, Morgan Smithies, and Harry Smith. Which, as I see Rich nodding, I think he's up for that.
Yeah, we'll just sell them. We'll just sell them on. We'll sell the picks on.
Or you get to keep Gareth Ellis and Keith Mason. That would be helpful.
Can I keep one of those? Sell the other one.
Keith. Keep Keith.
The excitement. Before we go on to this news, because somebody's mentioned this, I do like how 4020 magazine throws out a bone to the reader. A radical restructuring plan, Phil, that 4020 magazine, the actual paper, bits of paper, knows about. Sentient paper. What's going on? What's happening?
I think we'll probably hear more about it in a couple of weeks. But it's safe to say that there has been a plan drawn up for how rugby league could look that has attracted the relevant level of corporate investment to fund such a plan. And it's a plan that is from top to bottom. It's not aimed solely at elite clubs. But the clubs themselves are not being responsive to the plan, because they haven't decided amongst themselves what they want any plan to look like.